more sunlight out today, which is nice. And what did I read today? How about this one? Apparently there was a huge drone, I guess, theft of sort, and it was basically caught by the police. And look at all this equipment. It says police recover 100K in drones, accessories stolen from Fort Saskatchewan. It says here a 28-year-old man from Edmonton has been arrested and accused of stealing more than $100,000 worth of drones and drone accessories. It started when Fort Saskatchewan RCMP were called to two businesses on 88th Avenue in that city Tuesday morning for a report of commercial break-ins and enters. An officer with Strathcona County RCMP located both vehicles. However, they fled from the traffic stop. Makes you wonder if they actually flew a drone to, I guess, try to track where he was going and all that. It says officers were able to identify the vehicles used and linked one of them to an address in Edmonton. RCMP and an Edmonton Police Service tactical team executed a search warrant at the residence in Kinniski Crescent in Edmonton and say officers recovered the stolen drones. The accused is facing 6 charges including break and enter and possession of stolen property over $5,000. He has been released from custody and is set to appear in a Fort Saskatchewan court on Thursday. Police continued to search for other suspects but did not provide any number or any descriptions. Kind of makes me curious too, how exactly did they steal all these drones? For example, did they just do it brazenly, like you see in all those retail theft video nowadays? Or did they actually plan this out like at a certain time at nighttime to break into the store and so forth? Either way, I guess it's good that they were caught. And then I was reading this today, which was actually really fascinating. Apparently it dealt with a court ruling where the company Purolator Canada, it does things like parcel deliveries here. They were sued by a union due to things, for example, like the vaccine mandates during all the times of the lockdowns and stuff like that, where, as you know, during that time, a lot of businesses and organizations were telling people you either get vaccinated or you lose your job, for example. So I guess a quick example, it seemed like during these times, a lot of people had the belief that if you were, let's just say, quote, fully vaccinated and all that, you wouldn't get or spread things like COVID as much as a, quote, unvaccinated person. But as time went on, that didn't seem to be the case, where everyone can get it and spread it. So it made no sense, I guess, scientifically or logically in terms of mandates like these. And regardless of that, just from what I'm reading here, the company kept these, I guess, mandates in place, but because of that, they were sued by the union and they won. And it's kind of fascinating to read, I guess, the results as to what resulted in this ruling. So it says here, detailed summary of results in hourly paid grievances and group grievance. Matters addressed in paragraphs 1 to 377 of this award have led me to the conclusion that the SWP ceased to be reasonable as of June 30th, 2022. I will recap the 4 reasons advanced by Purolator for why it was reasonable to maintain the SWP from January 10, 2022 until May 1st, 2023. The primary reason was the danger to others in the workplace caused by introducing unvaccinated workers who were more likely to get infected and pass it on. That danger dissipated during the early part of 2022 and was eliminated in terms of any statistical significance by the late spring of 2022. The second reason was operational necessity. Customers and third-party requirements dictated that Purolator employees should be vaccinated to service these parties effectively. In order for this reason to continue to qualify as an ingredient of the reasonableness of the mandate, the onus was on the employer to prove, at least as of the date of management discussion about lifting the mandate in June 2022, that the third-party requirements remained in place in sufficient numbers to affect significantly the efficient operation of the business. Purolator utterly failed to do this. There is no need to review further the facts on this aspect of the case. The third reason offered by the employer at the hearing was protection provided by the vaccines against serious illness, hospitalization, and death. The argument was that keeping unvaccinated workers away from the workplace would contribute in some significant way towards workplace safety. I rejected that argument in the first place by finding that the contribution to workplace safety was so minimal or small that it did not reasonably justify depriving the unvaccinated workers of their livelihood. In the second place, I found that vaccination for the purposes of protecting against serious illness was a sensible precaution and furthered a commendable public health goal, but allowing unvaccinated workers into their workplace had no adverse impact whatsoever on their workplace safety or the safety of others there. It was not a reasonable workplace safety precaution in any way and thus did not qualify as reasonable grounds for maintaining the mandate. And then this last part was actually really fascinating because it could actually relate to so many other topics in life, because from what I gathered in reading this, it's kind of implied that the company just kept, I guess, the mandates anyways because of the potential repercussions of sort of having this policy in place in the beginning, if that makes sense. And it's kind of, I guess, embarrassing to kind of just admit it afterwards, like, okay, well, like, we were wrong. It says, lastly, there was the argument that unvaccinated workers, once infected, were more infectious than vaccinated workers once infected, so they should be kept away from the workplace. I addressed this at paragraph 169 and 189-215 under the section entitled Expert Evidence. I found the evidence on this subject after reviewing a series of reports and the expert evidence of both sides to be inconclusive. It did not amount to a valid reason for the mandate. However, looking back at the totality of the evidence, a critical fork in the road was reached with the management discussion in June 2022, which led to a decision to keep the mandate in place. Some of the considerations listed as favorable to the continuance of the mandate had nothing to do with enhanced workplace safety, but addressed concerns such as possible employee resentment and possibly being seen to acknowledge they were wrong to impose a mandate in the first place. Continuing third-party vaccination requirements, which continued to be treated as a serious factor, were totally unsubstantiated. That is kind of interesting to think about. So who knows what would happen after? I don't know. Can they, for example, quote, appeal it if they really want to? But it just makes you think in various topics too. What do people do when they realize they're wrong? And let's just say you basically put everyone in this bucket, you quote discriminated against them. Will you just admit it, for example, or will you continue on with something like this, for example? Because I know a lot of people, especially during those times of the lockdowns, they went all in terms of saying, yes, for example, divide the whole population, go kill these guys that, for example, are quote unvaccinated and all that. And yet today, they don't admit they're wrong. Instead, they just continue, for example, saying, no, we got to continue doing this, even though it doesn't make sense logically, kind of like what is implied here when you put in all the evidence. Or at the same time, you have people, they're obsessed with just attacking those, for example, who brought up those points where, hey, it doesn't make sense. I'm surprised as well why this isn't talked more in, let's just say, the mainstream media and all that, because theoretically, if this is science-based, this should be true for every organization and all that too that has these types of mandates. So what would you think about this? Really interesting in my opinion. Alright, see you guys later.